All right, well, welcome everybody. Really appreciate you all attending. For those that may not know, I'm Tim Cunningham. I am the equipment engineer out of Kansas. I've seen some of you, and some of you have seen about this much of me, but this is what I look like in person instead of Teams. Normally you hear my dogs barking in the background and all that, so this is all different. This in-person stuff, I really am looking forward to actually shaking hands and saying hi to everybody. This is our 2022 National Conference of the EMTSP. Really want to thank a couple of folks, Angel and the Florida DOT folks for hosting, and also the vendors that decided to exhibit and sponsor. Really appreciate their participation as well. Won't spend a lot of time in front of you. There'll be a lot of chances for me to get up and do presentations later. You'll be sick of me, but to kick this off, wanted to welcome George Connor. George is the Deputy Director of Operations for Alabama DOT. He's also the chair of the Maintenance Committee, or the Committee on Maintenance. We call it the MAC. And so George is the MAC Daddy. George, come on up. We appreciate you addressing the group.
Thank you very much, Tim. It is an honor and a pleasure and privilege for me to be here and address this group. The relationship between maintenance operations, which is my origin and my first love amongst DOT kind of work, and equipment is tight. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But what you do, the people in this room, what you do at your home agency is important and near and dear to my heart. Speaking of my home agency, I want to take a minute and direct your attention to my left. Stan Carlton, if you'd raise your hand. Stan is our equipment engineer equivalent. We have different titles because heaven forbid states call anything the same thing. Stan's a very important role at ALDOT. He's also the person that you should get to buy your lottery tickets while you're here in Florida. Since August, he's survived stroke and 2 heart attacks. And so it's a testament, first of all, how tough he is, a testament to how well his wife Diana takes care of him / bosses him around and makes him do what the doctor says. But we are thrilled. He's been back at work now for just a little over a week. I think he hastened his recovery to make sure he made this meeting. I'm thrilled that he's back with us, and wanted to express that in front of everybody here. An asset is a thing somebody owns, and DOTs own lots of assets. Assets have a life cycle. They are born, they grow, they mature, and sometimes they die. And in that asset life cycle, there are distinct steps, okay? Somebody thought about it. They planned for it. If it was a road or a bridge, they determined that there was a need. Whatever that was, somebody conceived it, put it into a long-range plan, and when they did their part, they passed it on to somebody else, and they went on to the next thing. That next group of people are designers, people that put ideas and put them down on paper. And they had to think through a whole lot of stuff and navigate things like permit processes and legal challenges, public involvement, as well as meeting all of the guidelines, specifications, manuals, and policies that a state has and a group like AASHTO publishes. But there comes a time when they have done their thing and that plan set, that contract documents are complete, and they pass it on and move on to something else. The third group that gets passed to is construction. They build that asset, and they take great pride in what they do, and they overcome a lot of challenges, namely fixing all the mistakes the designers made while they're under construction. It is its own challenge. It is even more difficult in a time with our economy the way that it is. and costs that are rising in supply chain issues. And it's a difficult job, and I appreciate the folks that do it, but there comes a time when they are finished with that project and they close it out and they move on to the next one. And they hand that thing off, that road or that bridge or whatever it is, to a group of people called maintenance. And maintenance takes care of that thing. They repair, maintain, they preserve. Sometimes they enhance. And at the end of the, wait a minute, there is no end. Maintenance folks, operations people, keep that asset for its entire remaining life. And in many cases, that life expectancy or that lifespan far exceeds the life expectancy of that asset when it was originally designed, because of the way and the care and the attention to detail that was given to it by the folks in charge of keeping it working. And that's an operational group. And in an operational world, the two people I'm talking about here is on the maintenance side and the equipment side. That is that partnership that I started my discussion about. Maintenance folks cannot do their work without two things: the ability to buy stuff and equipment to work with. And equipment has no reason to be if it weren't for the need that their customer, their biggest customer, the maintenance folks have. Lifelong maintenance requires equipment, good equipment, functional equipment, equipment that is appropriate to its function. And that's a role that you are instrumental in making sure happens at your home agency. Managing equipment is not easy, is it, Stan? There are 1 million people. Despite this very close relationship, everybody out there has a different idea of what your fleet should look like, what kind of equipment you should buy, what kind of features or attachments it should have. They don't much care about the money that it costs you, as long as it doesn't cost them a whole lot. But it is complicated. Equipment is complicated. It's specialized. It is expensive. We looked at a piece of equipment at Alabama DOT that if we were to purchase it just for the purpose of improving and automating crack sealing on roadways, that if we were to purchase this specific piece of equipment, would have been over $1 million for one piece. Cost of DOT fleets are increasingly under scrutiny. How many people in your home agency have had to answer questions about why isn't your fleet management and operation privatized? Who's not had to address that? Okay, very few. Most of us have had to do that. In reality, people that manage their own fleets within a DOT, the folks in this room, you are on the side of very efficient operation. But you're under scrutiny more and more because there's other folks see an opportunity to make money by managing your fleet. Lastly, fleet management is not for the faint of heart. EMTSP, we'll talk about that in a minute, a little bit more in more detail, but the Equipment Management Technical Service Program, this Technical Service Program for Equipment Management exists to serve you that are in this room, the people that are charged with managing these fleets. There are a ton of EMTSP resources. If you are not familiar with the resources that are available online through the EMTSP websites, then you need to please make yourself aware of it, make use of it, and more importantly, push it down through your organization. There's not anybody that works with equipment that wouldn't benefit by the things that are available online. Your use of EMTSP, your participation in it, your enrollment, part of the program makes it stronger. Your feedback, your engagement, your participation in meetings like this improves it even more and makes it even more useful. So EMTSP is part of a larger AASHTO community. The maintenance committee I chair, Tim said, the Mac Daddy, not my term, it just comes with the, with the role, right? But that maintenance committee is responsible within the AASHTO organization for 3 different technical service programs. One is TSP2, Transportation System Preservation Technical Service Program. Second one is SICOP, which is Snow and Ice Control Program, also known as Winter Maintenance, TSP. And then the third is EMTSP. Your very own Tim Cunningham is the chair of the oversight panel for EMTSP, and he also serves as the chair of the Equipment Technical Working Group within the Maintenance Committee. So, we talked about this, I have spoken about this relationship between equipment and maintenance. It is an important collaboration. You can buy the best equipment in the world, and if it doesn't meet a need, it's underused and it's not a successful purchase. The collaboration between equipment personnel and maintenance personnel is essential. It requires a close relationship, and it is a natural partnership. That life cycle of an asset is not something I just put up for grins and giggles. That's real. Anything a DOT has, the folks who are responsible for maintaining it have it for its entire life. They don't get to shelve it. They don't get to turn their attention somewhere else. They have a lot to look at elsewhere, but they can never just neglect something without consequences. And the part of that operation, the collaboration with equipment, means that the same is true for you. Maintenance cannot do its job without equipment. And equipment has no larger customer at a DOT than maintenance. It is a natural and important relationship. An everyday interaction with maintenance, between a maintenance people and equipment people, is essential and it's beneficial. The more our maintenance people understand what goes into managing fleets and keeping them working and all that goes behind it, the better it'll be for them. Likewise, the more your equipment people that work for you understand what that equipment is trying to serve out there in the world, the better it is for them as well. In ALDOT, I have staff meetings with the operations bureaus, and I have meetings with our region engineers. In our recent staff meeting, Steve Johnson, who is one of Stan's assistant bureau chiefs, came in and spoke to those folks about the equipment maintenance program at ALDOT and the revolving fund, and demystified a lot of what people thought happened within the program. And I'm talking about 35-year people who have used equipment their entire ALDOT career and were completely wrong, or at best sometimes befuddled, about how the program actually worked. And we need that more often at ALDOT. We need it more often and with more folks. And I would suspect that that's also a true statement that could be made for other DOTs as well. I do want to talk for a minute, talk about our NCPP and our new director. EMTSP is administered by the National Center for Pavement Preservation, which exists under the authority and is part of Michigan State University. TSP2 likewise serves a similar role, and NCPP is the administrator under contract to AASHTO to administer those two very important programs. TSP2 is the single largest technical service program within the AASHTO community, and EMTSP2 is a very large one and growing. and NCPP administers that. Many of you may remember our past director was retired as Judy Corley at the last spring at the Southeast Pavement Partnership meeting in Georgia. Bouzid and his staff prepared a recognition for her that was well deserved. I can tell you, she misses every one of you, but she is loving her retirement. She is quilting up a storm. But about a year now, coming up on a year, we've been operating in CPP under the executive leadership of Bouzid Choubain. Bouzid, would you please stand? Bouzid is the new Judy Corley, but with a French accent. Bouzid comes after a 30-plus year career with Florida DOT. His background is in pavement and materials. He has a host of publications and professional memberships and participation in industry associations. He is well known nationally. The pavement is his background, and equipment is something he looks forward to learning a lot more about. And so it's my pleasure. Please make sure you introduce yourself to him, and he wants to meet you as well. If you can't find him, just listen. You hear a little French accent somewhere, follow it, you'll find him. Now I want to talk about the maintenance committee in a little more detail. The AASHTO Committee on Maintenance exists to support and promote maintenance operations amongst its member agencies. And we organize 5 technical working groups, TWGs, and we call them twigs. In other committees, there might be task forces or subcommittees. We call it twigs because we like to be different, okay? So they are, in some form and order, not alphabetical, is pavement, bridge, roadway and roadsides, maintenance operations, and equipment. And as I said before, Tim Cunningham is the chair of our equipment twig, and they are one of the most, if not the most, active technical working group within the committee. They work exceptionally hard. They put out very good material. They serve the equipment community and the maintenance community with great distinction. And y'all should be very proud of the work that his group does. And if you're part of that group and it's through EMTSP, a lot of times it's a collaborative work with the technical working group. You do great work, and it is yielding wonderful results. I want to make this plea. Within the AASHTO community, the maintenance committee is your natural home. In many states, Kansas and Alabama being just 2 examples, the equipment person is a member of the committee, reflecting the importance of that role within maintenance operations. By AASHTO bylaws, you can only have 3 members, but there is no limit on how many people can go. That's up to your state. So please, if you have an interest and your management will let you do that, I'm asking, I'm inviting, I'm pleading. If I need to get down on my knees and somebody promises to help me up, I'll beg for your participation. This is an important committee of which equipment plays an important part, but it could be a lot better with more participation from this community, and we would love to have you there. We have 5 goals in the maintenance committee. Number 1 is we're going to be committed to fundamentals while we're embracing new technologies and processes, okay? DOTs around the country are faced with having to focus ever more increasingly on preservation of their system, while sometimes at the expense of focusing on expansion or capacity type projects, capital type projects. Excellence in fundamentals is essential. We get distracted sometimes, we collectively, by the next new thing, right? But excellence in fundamentals is important. And if you don't believe me, on my side of the world, don't patch those potholes or let the grass grow up 4 feet tall. That's boring, everyday, old-timey stuff. But it's important that we do that and we do it right. On your end, Don't do an oil change. Don't do that enough. And what happens? There's stuff that matters. The fundamentals matter while we embrace the things that are new at the same time. There's a story, I love to tell it because it's about my favorite football team. Gene Stallings, coach at Alabama back in the 90s. Somebody asked him one time, how do you manage to get your players pumped up for these little games? You know, they were playing a non-conference opponent that they were expected to win handily. And Coach Stallings said, there are no little games. If you don't believe me, just lose one. Okay? And that applies to a lot more than football. Second goal is to be recognized as a leader in the maintenance community. And that applies to each of those areas, pavement, bridge, roadway, roadsides, maintenance operations, and equipment. You represent the leadership that is needed and is being provided in the AASHTO community. One of our goals is to have better and better coordination between the maintenance committee and our TSPs. I'm happy to say that's a goal that we do really well at, but we are always focused on doing that even better. And you allowing me to be here and spend this time with you helps us with that goal. The fourth goal is to improve participation and attendance by our MAC members and other interested personnel. And that goes back to my appeal. The maintenance committee is your natural home within the AASHTO community, and your involvement is very much needed and appreciated. And lastly, the MAC has a goal of being more engaged with the other AASHTO communities that impact what we do. There's all kinds of folks out there, and they're sincere people who come up with stuff all the time that makes things better in the area that they're interested in, but can greatly impact us like crazy. How many folks have parts, what's the stuff we had to buy and put in the diesel fuel? Who here thought of that and said, I think that's a good idea, let me make sure we do that? Or it was imposed on you. It came from outside, right? And it was a challenge. On the maintenance side, we have areas that we can't mow except certain areas of time because of it's a habitat for certain things that live, down in the turf grasses. And that's just an example. There are whole groups out there that are pursuing things that are important, but in that pursuit, it impacts us and they don't think about us. It's our job to engage with them and make sure that our issues are considered and influence the decision that they're making. And you can have a role, an enhanced role with that, being a part of the maintenance committee. Okay, maintenance committee, after a 2-year hiatus, is meeting in person. This is your personal invitation from me, the chair, the Mac Daddy of the maintenance committee, to come to Washington, D.C. last week in July, and we'll have an in-person meeting. The actual start, I think, is the 24th. It says the 23rd there because we have the snow and ice TSP that comes in on Saturday. But it is your peers and your counterparts from around the country. And if your state will let you attend, please, we'd love for you to be there. In closing, I want to leave you with 3 things. When you're here, I'm going to ask you to be, to give, and to take. Be. I ask you to be present. Right now, this is a big turnout. You're present. Thank you for being here. When the vendor space is open and there's a meeting going on here, there'll be things that's important enough that we need to be over there, but be present where you need to be present. And when you're present, be really present. I'm terrible about this thing that sits on my hip and giving it more attention than it should get. Be present. Other than me, there's people here who really have something important to say, right? You're just suffering through my part because Tim needed an introduction, okay? But there'll be really important stuff coming up later. Be present. Be involved. Be attentive. Give. Give your time. Wherever it is you are, here, at a meal, after hours event, in the vendor space, give your time. Share your story. There is something you are doing at your home agency that somebody else is not doing, and it would be a good thing if they heard about it. Share your story. Engage with your peers and interact with your vendors. They want to sell you something, but they're also selling potential solutions that could be just the thing that you need. And your feedback to them helps them greatly in knowing what they should be marketing to you. Lastly, take. Take something back you can use. And you means you personally. It means the people that work with you, and it means your agency. If you go back with a head full of knowledge, that's good, but if you don't use it, it's not so good. You need to share what you learn here. Take it back, share it. Somebody else might spark some idea to them based on what you share. You've been very generous with your time. Thank you for this chance to speak with you. Hope you all have a great meeting. Thank you.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.